everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ciara, and as always, if you do not like what I say, how I say it, or why I say it, then please do feel free to click off this video and go about the rest of your day in peace. So this is going to kick off the first video in what I hope will be a new series here on my channel that you all will enjoy, where I will basically be discussing different topics suggested and voted on by you while I work on some kind of art piece in relation to the said topic. So please do drop suggestions in the comments for any kind of supernatural, spiritual, witchy, or any life topic, art topic, etc. that you would like to know more on and have me talk about. Anything goes, really. But for today, based on the suggestions and votes from my Instagram and the community tab, we'll be talking about shadow people, which I myself have encountered these entities, and I will share my own experiences toward the end of this video. So stick around for that if you are curious. Also, just a disclaimer, please excuse any of my mispronouncing of any specific mythological names or otherwise. Thank you. So, what is a shadow person? A lot of you were not actually familiar with what they are, so using the good old Wikipedia definition, a shadow person, also known as a shadow figure, shadow being, or black mass, is the perception of a patch of shadow as a living humanoid figure and interpreted as the presence of a spirit or other entity by believers in the paranormal or supernatural. Pretty general idea, but yes, shadow people very much fall under the ghost and paranormal entity umbrella, but I wouldn't necessarily call them spirits in the sense of, say, a passed on human entity. They don't really feel like that to me, but that's not to say that they couldn't be. In fact, some people suggest that they're anything from interdimensional beings, aliens, time travelers, demons in some cases, just to name a few. But I feel like all of these different suggestions really do illustrate just how bizarre and strange these entities come off energetically to most people, and it could really be a mix of all of them. We just don't know. I think listening to your gut when you cross paths with them and the feelings you read is highly important to determining their intentions. Typically, people see these beings out of the corner of their eyes, a quick blur of black, either as a blob or a full human figure, sometimes even with red glowing eyes. Some reports have said that, which to me sounds kind of like how some descriptions of the Mothman are, so that's something maybe to consider. It's usually very quick regardless, but often leaves you confused and questioning whether what you saw really was there or not. That is the most basic of encounters and probably what we could refer to as like a level 1. And they seem to only really progress upwards from there in intensity. Some reports even identify a specific kind of shadow person referred to as the Hat Man, who is particularly more negative in energy and intention based on what I've read and what I've heard story-wise when people have encountered him. The knowledge or modern awareness of these shadow people really came to the spotlight in 2001 by the radio talk show Coast to Coast, but the concept of shadowy beings really extends further back than that, much further. Many cultures and mythologies feature some form of this otherworldly shadow. To name a few, Far Darksha, aka the Dark Man, which is a typical type of dark fairy described in Celtic myths, shades mainly from Greek myth, and the Anera from Japanese mythology, and there's many more. Scientifically, a lot of these encounters with the shadow kind are reduced to hallucinations, sleep deprivation, heightened emotions, or even various mental disorders. Now, that's not to say that if you have one of these things, that isn't the cause for encountering one of these shadows, but as I will testify in my own experiences, both the significant encounters I had, none of these scientific reasons / explanations fit the situation. But on the note of sleep deprivation, a very common case and situation that people do encounter these shadow beings is during sleep or through more so a state of sleep paralysis. Often describing an overbearing presence in the room, seeing the shadow standing typically in a doorway or a corner of the room, or even at the foot of the bed. Even some encounters turn much more frightening when the beings are actually sitting on the person's chest in paralysis and possibly attempting to choke them. Which, if that sounds familiar to some of my supernatural loving peeps, that is very much how stories describe like encountering mares, sometimes incubus, night hags, pressing spirits, and a host of other things, including spells or hexes being a cause. Basically, many cultures have some kind of story that aligns with these things, which for me speaks volumes that there is for certain some kind of shared phenomena happening here, and that it has been going on for a very long time, probably since the dawn of man. If you go into Reddit, TikTok, or YouTube, you'll find a whole slew of posts and videos on this subject, and some stuff actually caught on camera, granted. You must have a very critical view, though, of a lot of this stuff, because it is quite easy nowadays to fake such phenomenon. Some of my personal favorites out there are, of course, Nuke's Top 5, which his channel shows a whole range of spooky content, a lot of ghost content, and a good amount of it is, clips of people capturing shadow beings on camera. One of note that I found through Nuke's channel that I find really fascinating is the channel Ghost of Caramel, Maine. I highly recommend, stumbling over my words here, checking out both of these channels to see some really interesting stuff. So now to move on and get to my own personal experience with shadow beings. I have seen shadows more than once through my life, along with a number of other spooky things, but I will only be mentioning a few for today's video. Now, all of these encounters I would really label as not negative in energy. There was more of a sense of like the shadows, like I'm just passing through or just hanging out and watching, which is another thing of importance to note when it comes to dealing with shadow people or really any entities. If you don't like their presence and if you're getting bad vibes, then tell them to get the fuck out. One of the common things I see with the sort of like possession or haunting situations, so to speak, is that those affected, most of the time, not always, but typically did not set up a very clear no from the beginning. It's like any relationship. Set your boundaries. Also, don't go playing around with these things and inviting them in without knowing what you're doing, and especially if you don't know how to protect yourself and your energy. AKA, a lot of people who go toying around with Ouija boards. Ouija boards have long been, a toy. They literally started as a toy for children, but the concept behind a Ouija board and the intention that you set with an Ouija board is all about inviting something in to communicate, opening up a channel. A lot of people, again, treat it like a joke, treat it like a toy, but they are using a tool, regardless of what it may be, to open up a channel. And if you're not prepared for or having the correct intention of what you're wanting to open up that channel for, then expect some weird shit to happen as a result. But anyway, to my stories. The first one is pretty short, and I only really mention it because of the location I encountered this. But it was a very brief situation. So I'm sure most of you probably don't know this, unless of course you follow me on like Instagram, my social medias like that. But for part of the week, I actually work at a funeral home. Well, it was either when I first went in for an interview or it was my first main training day. I can't really remember at this point. I had stepped into one of the rooms and a literal shadow passed right in front of my eyes. It wasn't a very dense, dark shadow, but it was pretty obvious to me. And it really didn't stick around. I haven't encountered too many shadows since then at my work, but I have definitely encountered other entities and things. But my second story is a weird one because it wasn't just me who saw it, but 3 other people and my cat. So basically, we were all sitting in the living room space watching, funnily enough, Dancing with the Stars, and my cat was directly next to me on the armrest of the couch while everybody else was sitting next to me on said couch. This room was essentially made up of a small living room, kitchen, and a spot that served as the dining room. But there was no separating walls, or like sectioning off of these spaces, so it was an open floor plan. There were sliding glass doors that led to the outdoor porch and backyard. So when we were watching TV, a dark shadow literally zoomed from the kitchen, went the length of the whole entire room, and into like the space that is the laundry room that was right off this main room. And it moved past the sliding glass doors. My head automatically whipped around to look at it, since I mainly saw it out of the corner of my eye. Now, the weird thing was that the blinds were slightly moving now, as if some kind of wind had pushed them, and everyone else at the same exact time looked over, including my cat. I tell you, we were all looking at each other in complete shock. No one was moving. There was nothing else in the house. It was totally bizarre. Now, I ask you, how can 4 people and a cat all see the same hallucination at the same exact time? According to science, if that's just the cause for these things. Pretty odd if you ask me. Now, this next encounter happened around 2019, early 2020. I was heading up the stairs in the current house I live in. Everyone else was downstairs doing their various tasks, things, whatever it may be. At the top of the stairs is a large bedroom to the right, and that door is always left open. And I have passed by this door up the stairs so many number of times, and the light is always off in the room. So I'm very familiar with how the furniture and everything is set up in this room and what it looks like, especially with the dim lighting coming from the hallway. So I get to the top of the stairs and I start to walk towards my room when my eyes briefly look into the bedroom out of habit. And I saw a super thick, dense shadow standing inside the room, nearly the height of the wall itself. And unlike the other 2 times, this was certainly human in shape. Well, comically, I just kept walking down the hall, since my brain literally hadn't computed what my eyes had just seen until I was at my door. Then I just kind of stopped dead in my tracks, and I literally backed up. I turned around to look back in the room again. Well, the shadow was definitely gone now, and there was nothing else in the room that would cast a dense shadow like this, especially when there was no lights on at all. I was just kind of dumbfounded. I didn't doubt at all that it was a shadow person, because at this point, in this point of time, I was really kind of used to now spooky things kind of happening on a regular, and kind of seeing things out of the corner of my eye on in a normal manner. So it was just really, really funny, especially my reaction to it, because it was just I literally walked down the hall, and then it dawned on me what my eyes had just taken in, and I just kind of stopped and huh? Nani? It was just hilarious, honestly, to me when I think about it. But now my last story is actually the most recent encounter, which happened exactly on February 24th, 2021. And it was actually a minor sleep paralysis situation, which is something I don't really have happen to me very often. I'm not sure what time it was, probably more so in the early morning. And basically I was kind of pulled from my sleep, but I wasn't fully awake. I could I could see my ceiling fan, but my eyes wouldn't fully open, and I could not move at all. But there was very clearly, because I was looking up, I could see my ceiling fan, and then right beside that, standing over me, was a very tall, dark figure. The feeling, though, that I got off of it was more like curiosity than anything necessarily malice or anger or anything negative, wanting to do me harm. It was more like this strange curiosity of what is this thing, and why is it kind of awake now, and why, that kind of feeling. But with that said, though, obviously I'm in a state where I can't move. I don't really feel particularly comfortable with this thing standing over me, so I knew I wanted to tell it to back off. So that's exactly what I did. And when I did it, you know, it kind of hesitated. It kind of like backed off, and then it kind of crept back up, like, are you sure? And then I was like, no, go away. And I cast it out like my way of doing protection, and then it went away. And that was basically it. It was just a very, very kind of like odd experience. And again, the fact was that I could see my ceiling fan. So I know that like my eyes were open to some extent, but like my mind consciously wasn't awake, so to speak. It was very, very odd. And again, I could not move. So I want to stress again, the important thing with all of these encounters was that I was not fearful of them. More just in either like a state of awe or like, well, that was fucking weird. I think it's really important to not be fearful, because that can sort of be a form of like gateway to inviting especially like unwanted spiritual attention, in my opinion. I see that fear aspect being a very key role to, again, like really kind of negative hauntings and things like that. So again, those are just my quick personal stories and kind of experiences with, again, shadow things. I hope that you guys enjoyed this and that you also enjoyed watching me work on this artwork in relations to the piece of information that I'm giving you. And I hope I've also just piqued your interest in delving more into the shadow person phenomenon for yourself, because there's still a lot we don't know about it and lots of different stories out there. So I want to also open up the comment section to you guys. Have you had your own encounters with shadow people or shadow beings? Definitely do sound off in the comments and let me know, because I would love to know your stories. Maybe I could even do a second version of this video sharing your personal stories and maybe doing like some little artworks based on your stories, because I think that would be kind of a neat way of, you know, interacting with you guys on something like this. But also sound off in the comments about, you know, what kind of topics would you like me to talk on for next time? You know, definitely, again, any topic can go. Just, again, leave a suggestion if you feel like it. And I thank you all so much for listening and watching. And if you would like to, of course, help support my channel and the work that I do, don't forget to subscribe, turn on that bell notification so you do not miss any future videos, like and share this video. And also check out all my links down below, such as my social media, because that's where I do a lot of polls, and of course my Patreon, where there's all kinds of exclusive access to things and probably future stories as well. So with that said, I will see you all in the next one.